Good morning. Until yesterday, we had seen how Porphyria had glided in to make the cozy room warm, and the lover was musing upon and taking note of every action that Porphyria was performing. She came in, shut the storm out, and now she has taken off her cloak, her wet gloves, loosened her hair, and put them around her lover, who is now resting his head upon her shoulder. This is more than what could excite Porphyria's lover to think this way. He says, but passion sometimes would prevail, nor could tonight's gay feast restrain a sudden thought of one so pale for love of her, and all in vain. So she was come through wind and rain. So this is the calculation. This is the observation which Porphyria's lover is making, and he commits just in the beginning that it is passion which is prevailing over his persona. He is taking Porphyria as a gay feast. She is as if something presented to him to be devoured, and we see the utility, the significance of this expression, gay feast, which he is trying to restrain. She is like a gay feast. Porphyria, the goldfish, the beautiful, the elegant, the loving fish is in, and the man is taking her for a feast. And when he contemplated upon this presentation, a thought of love struggled inside, but then it subsided. And he was bloated with the idea, a sort of he flattered himself with the thought that she was come through wind and rain for him. With this thought, and to confirm her love for him, be sure I looked up at her eyes, happy and proud. So he had a look into the eyes of Porphyria, and the stainless eyes just glinted with the thought of happiness and pride, because she had fought the storm and the rain. At last I knew Porphyria worshipped me. So this is what the lover has come to assess. He has come to assess that Porphyria did not love him. She worshipped him. She took him in very high esteem. And let us see the course of action that follows. Surprise made my heart swell, and still it grew while I debated what to do. So there was surprise in his mind. Did he deserve a kind of worship from Porphyria? He's surprised, and then his heart swells with an undesirable thought. And he started debating what to do. That moment, she was mine, fair, completely pure and good. I found a thing to do, and all her hair in one long yellow string I wound. 3 times her little throat around and strangled her. So there was a debate in his mind. I wonder if there was a debate, and if the debate had the same origin as Porphyria's love had. Porphyria worshipped him, and he is debating. And he says that in that moment of complete surrender, of complete emotional surrender, she was his. Now, a beautiful pun has been employed upon the word mine. mine the wealth contained in the womb of earth, the wealth, the riches, and Porphyria is in complete possession of that wealth of goodness, of that wealth of love for him. And he is feeling proud that she at this moment is his and no one else's, and that she is fair and pure and good. So what is the reward that he gives to her for this fairness, this purity and goodness? He found a thing to do, and he just took her yellow hair. In a string he wound the hair, and 3 times, see the ominous figure, 3 times does it, winds it around her throat and strangled her. The criminality of this man is very evident in the curt expression, "No pain felt she." Porphyria is feeling no pain. Is it possible that she might not have felt the pain of being strangled? But she perforce puts up a strong character of herself in projection, that she takes whatever he has to give to her in this moment of an emotional surrender. He feels that she felt no pain and repeats it. This brings the irony. This brings the criminal heartedness of this man. I'm quite sure she felt no pain. This repetition is indicative of the cruel, of the insensitive being of Porphyria's lover. As I told you, we have to take into consideration whether this man is actually a lover or not. The title has volumes to say. The girl has come in complete suppliance. The girl has come with the idea of worship for him, and he strangles her, and he observes no pain that she might have experienced. We go further. As a shut bud that holds a bee, I warily oped her lids. Again laughed the blue eyes without a stain. The love of Porphyria is actually worship. She has given herself to the thought that she loved him. And when so passionately struck is this man, that when she has passed away, when she has gone, left the world, in the middle of the complete feeling of worship that she had for him, he dares open her eyes and wants to see that while she passed away, did she have a sense of anger or a blame or a dismissal of love? But then when he opened those buds of her lids, he saw that they were laughing without a stain. And I untightened next the tress about her neck. Her cheek once more blushed bright beneath my burning kiss. The alliteration used here of the B, the repetitive sound of B, is so indicative of the faltering speech that he has to say. But now he cannot speak, so he planted a kiss upon her cheek, and he felt that this Porphyria is still alive in her love for him, that she blushed bright beneath his burning kiss. I propped her head up as before, only this time my shoulder bore her head. So earlier when she had come in, she took his head, which she felt was in desperation, was in sadness of the separation that might occur between them. This time the man takes down the drooping head and puts it on his shoulder. The smiling rosy little head. so glad it has its utmost will. And he is taking a sense of conceited pride in himself, that he feels that this rosy little head is smiling. The girl is as though smiling. It is a contempt that she might be throwing upon him, that I came to you thinking you as a god and you devoured me in this moment of meditation. So the smiling rosy little head, so glad, and he felt that she was glad also in this death, that she was able to procure its utmost will. She had willed to meet him, and now she is united to him forever, until an external force might come, detect them and separate them. So she has had its utmost will, and all its scorn at once is fled. And she had come in scorn of the world, the society that was trying to prevent her from meeting him. This was all gone. She was in a sense of pride. And I, its love, am gained instead. So in this moment, she has gained me. What has she gained? She has gained Porphyria's love. She guessed not how her darling one wish would be heard. And thus we sit together, and all night long we have not stirred. And yet God has not said a word. It is again a sense of convincing himself that he has not done anything undue, that he has not murdered the girl in cold blood. He has no sense of guilt, and he is defying as if the heavens, which though raging earlier in the storms and the winds, and they were shut down by Porphyria, he challenges those heavens and says that neither did Porphyria show any sign of pain, and nor has God said a word, because the clapping of the thunder, the raging wind have all stopped. So the poem ends with giving to you a rounding off of the character of Porphyria's lover. He is a man with the heart of a stone. And this, as we all know, that sometimes a person is so soft, sometimes a person is so guiltless that it does not allow the wrongdoer to have any sense of having done wrong. She is so guiltless. She came in, she dared the storm. She comes in, tries to convince him, tries to comfort him with her love, and ultimately she shows the final feeling of worship for him. Can we think of a character who goes to a temple with a complete devout heart, with a thought to be redeemed, to be given love in return for what one carries in one's heart, and the statue pounces upon the worshipper and devours it? This is what Porphyria's lover has done. And there could have been no better device to explain, to draw before us the real character of the Porphyria's lover, unless Browning had used this device of dramatic monologue. People who might have gone in the morning might have seen a dead girl resting upon the bare arms of a man, and might have contemplated that the man is in the gesture of comforting her. How would we at all know that it was a drive that was encouraged by the guiltless love, by the worship of Porphyria? We would never be able to assess this. So the theme of a very abnormal and a criminal love could not have been presented otherwise had not Robert Browning chosen for his narration, for his presentation of the character of Porphyria's lover, the dramatic monologue. He dramatizes the situation, the entrance of the girl, the surrender of the girl, the contemplation and the musing of the lover, and his killing and sealing it all with a sense of triumph that he has had his possession and gods are not saying a word. Think over it. This is a glaring example to introduce to us Robert Browning as a poet of love and as a master craftsman of dramatic monologue. Thank you.